Welcome, Helen. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. Good. How are you? How's everyone?
Our pleasure. How's
Great,
everyone?
doing well.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So, maybe some introduction. I know I have like 15 minutes, so there's really not much time. We're a data analytics company and we do employ AI, but more classic machine learning, classic AI models, not as much LLMs. I think, for practical purposes, as we were talking about go to market, whether or not it's marketing, sales, retention, in terms of forecasting and things like that, classic machine learning models still work much better. I want to say still because LLMs are fast catching up, but we hopefully within the next year or two we'll see LLMs being able to do really good forecasting as well. But for now, we're relying on classic machine learning models as well as people's kind of own judgment for forecasting. So I want to just share with you, for Discern, like what we're doing with regard to AI. So, we analyze companies' performance, right? So, and we're very much focused on like B2B software companies. So when you think about that, we're looking at the marketing funnel, the sales funnel. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the sales funnel today. So I just want to share with you what we do that has worked well for us. Uh, Let me just. Oops, hold on, let me share my screen. So the first thing I wanted to share with you is really just, every sales organization wants to know kind of, wants to forecast, right? Want to know kind of where, how well they're doing for the quarter, where they're going to end up in the quarter, and everyone asks what's happening. So this is one of the things that we have put together. So this graph has three lines. The top line is the dotted line is the target. The green line is actually Discern's AI forecast for this particular company. The red line down in the bottom is what the company actually closed won by the end of the quarter. And then we really run this model every single day. And what we're doing here is that we're literally just employing, you can use a random forest model or logistic regression model. We run a bunch of models for companies, taking into consideration like who the AE is, who they're selling into, what's the company, what's the company size that they're selling into, which industries, what type of opportunity it is, pretty much anything you can think of that's related to a deal or an opportunity. And we're able to, you can see the green line, this is Q3 of 2024, we're able to very accurately forecast what the quarter is going to end up, really starting week 2. Right. So here, what we're doing is that we're looking at, so we do have opportunity scores. We're looking at what's close won, and then of the open opportunities, what do we expect the company to close? So that's existing open. What do we expect the company to create and close based on historical patterns? And what do we expect them to pull in from future quarters? So all of those things add up to our forecast, which at that point was 6.4 million, and the company ended up like 6.6 million. So that's one thing that I wanted to share with you. So the other thing that, as we're talking about forecasting for the company, then we talk about, okay, well, great, you've got the AI forecast, but what are my salespeople thinking, right? So we do have a forecasting module where people are able to put in like, okay, yes, I think I'm going to close this deal and I'm going to close this at maybe 100,000 or 200,000, and there are some other deals that's not even in the pipeline that I want to forecast for, and I want to submit that. And then companies are able to see kind of a weekly summary of what everyone forecasted, how accurate they are, how much they have won compared to quota at the end of the quarter to look at accuracy. So really, it's bringing humans and AI together to look at human forecast and AI forecast. Because we study so much of kind of the details of every single opportunity and the conversion rates. What we're able to do is then, utilizing like optimization models and other models to allow companies to do the type of planning that they want. So, for example, companies can set up bookings targets. Companies can figure out what their pipe creation potentially could be, both at an ML level or MQL, top of the funnel, and pipeline creation, and then figure out what we can populate their historical conversion rates, but they can also populate different conversion rates going forward. And for us to be able to tell the companies what their bookings are going to be over the next few years. So that helps a lot in terms of planning to say, hey, if I wanted to get to a certain target, what do I really need to do? And in which area do I need to do? And then breaking down everything, bookings into multi-year, new business, upsell. So I'm going to take a little break here just to see if anyone has any questions. Are people surprised by kind of the type of, leverage of classic machine learning models here?
Mark?
So my question would be, how are you bridging the gap between what a machine learning model is capable of doing and then causality? Because
Yeah.
if it's purely pattern based, right, that's going to get you kind of like in the zone, okay? But it's not going to like factor in things like externalities. So how are you dealing with that?
So here we don't really distinguish between causality versus correlation, right? So we are literally looking at just correlation of if a opportunity has these characteristics, what do we expect it to do? So we assign a score to every opportunity to say, okay, this is 83%. And if it's 83 times the amount, that's literally what goes into our forecast. And we do test it over and over again. Now, externality, I would say this type of forecasting is much easier for just like small to mid-sized deals, right? If you have deals that are like $1 million, several $1 million, where it is very lumpy, then that is much more difficult. And that's why we like to have both kind of the machine learning forecast along with the human forecast.
It's good. It's a good answer. I think based on the use case that you're looking at, it works, right? I'd love to talk to you later if you've got time.
No, absolutely. And then, so the other thing that we actually wanted to talk to you guys about is that that's great that people are thinking about like AI, et cetera. But a lot of companies on the very basic side are not even tracking kind of their tape and relative to target, how they're pacing. So here, what you can see, this particular company is looking at actuals versus quarterly target versus attainment. Now, this is pipe creation. You can do the same on booking side, right? But what companies oftentimes are not looking at is that they're not looking at pacing. And so what we like to do is for companies to, hold on one second, let me see if I could pause share for a little bit and then pull up a pacing diagram to illustrate what I'm talking about. Okay, so hopefully this comes up. So what we're saying is that the actual number could be very low because it's in the middle of a quarter, right? Or the beginning of a quarter, and the target could be very high. But if you continue this particular pattern, again, it's pattern recognition. What do we expect you to end up the quarter at? So very early on, I mean, the whole point of doing forecasting and doing this type of pacing analysis is for companies to be able to adjust and correct ahead of time, right? So you don't want to adjust like week 10, 12 of a quarter. It's too late. So week 3, 4, 5 of a quarter, I'm already seeing what is happening. And that's why pacing analysis is actually quite important to know, okay, where am I not doing as well? Where am I doing well if I continue this particular pattern? down into the quarter. So this is not like machine learning or AI at all. This is just like basic things that we know companies should be doing, but very few companies are actually doing. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. So that's a quick demo from Discern, from a forecasting perspective, kind of pipeline planning, reverse modeling, and then pacing.
Thank you so much, Helen. And
Well done.
do you have any questions?
For this panel?
No. I'm just asking some of our panelists, and I received these questions from the audience. One is really philosophical. Helen, why is forecasting so hard?
Okay, I don't think forecasting is hard. So forecasting, it depends, right? If you're a very small company, you have very few data points. That is hard. If you have a large company, you have many data points, you just need to do it. So it's not a hard technical problem. It's a harder process issue. Now, machine learning models, AI models, they can actually figure out, which AEs have bad CRM hygiene, or who has really good hygiene, and then really take all of that into consideration in modeling, right? So it's actually not as hard as people think. It's actually quite easy to solve as long as you have hundreds of data points. We're not talking about big data here. We're talking about small data. We don't need, millions of data points. We need hundreds, thousands of data points, and we can actually do forecasting quite easily. Now, going back to what Mark was talking about, taking into consideration of externality, well, making your team do the forecast every week, like do your forecast Fridays or forecast Tuesdays consistently every single week, and really getting that into the team's mind. Now, that's a process issue. That's much harder than the technical issue that we're trying to solve for.
Another question here. How are you dealing with a clean input problem?
So I think I was just addressing that, right? We just need to know when an opportunity is created and when it's closed. We don't really need to know every single thing. That's, people, I think, over-index on how much an activities are going to impact kind of bookings or one. There's really not that much correlation, because one person's low level, like low quality activity versus high quality activity drive very, very different results, right? So we actually don't think input is that important. We just need some data points. The AI models, the machine learning models, are smart enough to take all of that into consideration to score an opportunity and to actually predict wins.
Does this solution replace any other point solutions? Who are your competitors?
Who are our competitors? Well, everyone who does like AI forecasting, potentially. Look, Discern is actually very analytics oriented. We're not a conversational intelligence product. So, we're not Gong, we're not Clary, we're not doing conversational intelligence. We're not helping companies do outreach for BDRs. What we do is we help companies automate reporting to get themselves kind of out of like Excel reporting. We provide a ton of different analytics as well as some forecasting. So forecasting is just one of the many things that we do. Most of our value add comes from getting away from manual reporting, get all the internal weekly, monthly, like board reporting out of the way, but really be able to study the data and make the right decisions and optimize for performance rather than spending all that much time thinking about reporting.
Helen, can you share some customer stories, the ones that inspire you the most?
Ooh, okay. There are so many customer stories, and this one is not even related to forecasting, but this is a very most recent story that I had a conversation with a customer who basically one of the things that Discern does, we automate ARR calculation for every company, right? So if you look at the finance team who needs to do ARR calculation, it's not in the CRM, it's not in the billing system, it's not in the accounting system. So it's mostly like in spreadsheets, and you have to bring data from multiple systems and really understand how to apply consistent ARR rules, which can get very complicated. So for this particular customer, once they launched Discern, they were like, okay, for month-end close, we used to have 5 people spending 5 days each, at least, full time on this particular issue. And it's a customer with like, low tens of millions of ARR. And now they have Discern, it's just one person, one day. So this is the type of like efficiency gain that we can deliver to customers. It's always great to, have it quantified, but also, it's not just cost savings. They're seeing into the future, for risk mitigation, for forecasting, again, reporting, but that's more on the ARR, NRR, GRR side.
So how far out into the future can you actually go with fidelity?
Oh my gosh. As long as you want. We can also go back as far as people want. So as soon as we implement with a customer, we take all of their history. So day one, because our models are based on history, right? And so then now, in terms of if you were talking about ARR forecasting, things like that, right? There is a little bit of a duration issue because there are only so many multi-year deals into the future. Now we can always use historical renewals, conversion rates, renewals, win rates, historical renewal rates to apply. So yes, you can go as far as into the future as long as you have assumptions to the future. We're not giving assumptions to the customers. We're allowing customers, they know their business, they can put in their own assumptions.
So the way that I see this is that you've done some really cool stuff here. The where stuff like this, because it's not just you at all, right? Bumps up against a problem is that past is not prologue, right? And
Correct.
so I think until you, so I think that
Well, past is prologue in some ways for us, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but past is
And
in real terms is not, right?
yeah.
We only have to look at the last 5 years to see evidence of that, right?
Right. Okay. Yes. I want to address that too. Like in terms of recency, right? Oftentimes we just look at the last 2 quarters. We don't look in the past 5 years to figure out what's happening because things have changed, right? So we look at last 2 quarters and most last 4 quarters. And then every single quarter or every single month, depending on the, some companies are really on a monthly targets, others are on quarterly. So every single month, every single quarter, we update with the latest data. So then you have to basically feed the model the latest data for it to work. So yeah, that recency is important. So maybe not past is prologue, but present is prologue into the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think that where I would really encourage you to go with this, right? Because I think it has a lot of potential is getting more. So if we just think about deals for a second, right? Deals have 2 sides minimum, right? The more information you can bring in from the customer side of every deal, which is a headwind, tailwind kind of effect on the deal, the more interesting this is going to get. I think that the externalities, I mean, if you kind of look at it just from pure data science principles, right? In order to get an accurate model, the goal is to get something as close to real life as possible. And 2/3 of that are always externalities that you don't control. So I think that the more of that you can bring into your product, the more of that perspective you can bring into the product, the richer it gets.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, so in our product, for example, we have the manual forecasting with people writing in, why, right? Why they think they're forecasting this or why they don't think they're forecasting for this, for a particular opportunity. Then bring in those kind of, human-based evaluation into the AI model probably will make a lot of sense. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that the sticky part here always, and it's kind of a law of gravity in this whole thing, right? That affects us all, is that for data to exist, the thing that it's measuring has to have already happened, right? So even if it's in the last 30 seconds, it's still the past, right? And so it's a that's the reason why data by itself can't give you what you need in the end as far as making a better decision, because it's always and only about the past, and you can't extrapolate accurately out of the past, right? So it's I think the dynamism that you talk about is already kind of being in your product to some degree, right? Is the secret, right? Because it's that dynamism together with the creation of a feedback loop that matters most.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Always taking into consideration like new factors that we can get our hands on, as well as, as soon as if something happens, take that into consideration and kind of, retrain the model and see what's happening there.
Great.
So,
awesome.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mark. Thank you, Anne.
Sure.
And everyone for coming to our second AI Summit, only on Hard Skill Exchange. We are building the stock market of skills. So if you love the speakers, you can book one-on-one sessions with them on the platform, hardskill.exchange. And we will return in February with our third AI Summit. Lots of exciting themes, very practical. Spoiler alert, we'll have the CEO of G2, of course, Mark Stoops, of course, and Hollander, hopefully Helen too. And Justin, take us out.
Well, it's been a very remarkable 3 days, and yeah, there's a lot of hype about AI, and you normally just hear about writing emails with ChatGPT, and that's a lot of fun. It's like watching cats with snorkels. But there's a lot of gray matter on the last 3 days. I learned a ton, and wow, we're gonna have the recordings up and live probably by the end of next week. I want to thank all of our sponsors, the audience, the community, everyone that supported us the last 3 years, and thanks again. Follow Mark Stews, follow Helen Lynn, follow all the amazing presenters, and that's all she wrote. We'll see you in another month.
Thank you.